I'm Brad Edwards. Thank you for streaming with us. And today we are talking about the mayor's race, a little bit of a shakeup. Earlier, as the announcement was made that 4th Ward Alderman Sophia King will enter the now ever-growing mayor's race. It's becoming a crowded field. She, of course, was endorsed by former President Barack Obama, now former President Barack Obama, in 2016 to win that seat in City Council, currently serving the 4th Ward. That's one of many topics we want to talk about. All things mayor's race. We want to bring in our friend of the stream, lawyer, talk show host, many other titles, Kimberley Egonmwan. Kimberley, are you surprised by this, and what's it mean?
Well, good afternoon. No, I'm not surprised, because we've been hearing about this for some time, that she, meaning Alderman Sophia King, might enter the race. As you may remember, she was first appointed to her Hyde Park, Kenwood. It encompasses Bronzeville and also part of South Loop. She was first appointed to be alderman after Alderman Will Burns decided he was not going to be alderman anymore. She was appointed by former Mayor Rahm Emanuel, and then, of course, won a special election in which she was endorsed by President Barack Obama. So she's the first person to have that type of name behind her, which I think in this race may be a game changer. He still has a very strong reputation, especially in that area, coming out of University of Chicago, and his wife working at University of Chicago. This may be a game changer.
Interesting. And interesting to think of it as that. And no matter what, you can't wipe out that prior endorsement, whether Barack Obama enters the murky waters of the mayoral race as yet to be seen. But now we are looking at, some legitimate contenders here. And one thing we want to talk about is money. Lori Lightfoot has approximately $2.6 million on hand, the current mayor. Businessman Willie Wilson has $4.55 million on hand. And former head of CPS, Paul Vallis, has roughly $850 million on hand. Is money going to be the real marker here? No one will likely have the strength to raise money like Rahm Emanuel. I mean, he was lapping people. He was lapping individuals when it even came to the last race, when he bowed out at the last minute. Money is always a factor. Does Sophia King have the kind of prowess to raise the big bucks?
Coming from an aldermanic seat, first of all, that is a handicap, because as you probably already know, Brad, there has never been an alderman who went on to become mayor, and that's been in the entire history of the city of Chicago. As far as money being an issue, she's coming out of an area which does have money. As I said before, if she can get the endorsements that she got the last time, and as I mentioned, Rahm Emanuel endorsed her, pretty much appointed her to this seat, she would have connections to those moneymakers. A former President Barack Obama, who will be, he's already broken ground on his museum in the city of Chicago, of course. These are things that would give her access to money if she has the right friends and the right people in place.
And it sounds like she does so far. You're right. Former Mayor Rahm Emanuel was obviously critical in her appointment to the city council and getting that endorsement from Barack Obama back in 2016. When you look at this field of candidate, we also have Jamal Green, community organizer, Alderman Ray Lopez, Willie Wilson, aforementioned, Representative Cam Buckner, Alderman Roder Sawyer, Paul Vallis, and now Alderwoman King. Does anyone stick out as being the biggest potential threat early on? And we'll say that we'll just consider the fact that that the incumbent, always has the advantage. Does anyone, do you see, out of the gate, have the best chance to unseat the champ, if you will?
Well, with this list of people who are running, most of these people have run before, or we are very familiar with them running for office. When we talk about what the issues are going to be, I think we have to look at that as the landscape forming as far as what someone may have their chances against the current mayor, and that has to do with public safety. So even Alderman Sophia King, when she came out, it was about, we can definitely, I'm going to paraphrase, basically support the police, support having a strong police force, but also respecting the community. That's a paraphrase. But it still had to be mentioned as probably one of the top things. So when you're looking at that, I think of all of the people who are running right now, someone like a Paul Vallis gives the biggest contrast to the current mayor, in that he's definitely a friend of the police. He's probably the most conservative of all the people who are running. His message has been, if you have followed him on Facebook or on social media, it has been growing as far as being followed by others, because he has a very strong pro-police message. We're going to end crime, and that is going to run against the record that Mayor Lightfoot already has in office. All of these people who are running, for the most part, have got some type of record. There's one gentleman who is currently a police officer. I believe his name is Frederick Collins. We had him on the show. So he does not have a political record. Jamal Green does not have a political record per se, but he has been out in the community and as an activist. Dr. Willie Green has been out in the community as an activist and has run for office several times. Then you've got multiple aldermen who are going to run on the record of what their communities actually look like. If we're talking about that, Brad, I think that might be one of the number one reasons why aldermen they don't do well when running for mayor, because they have to run on the record of what they've done for their community. So when you're talking about Alderman Sawyer, who is not officially a candidate, really, he has not had a premiere of a video or any type of information put out. He was spoken to on the street, and someone said, "Are you running?" "Yeah, I'm going to run and I'll announce later." That's not, to me, an official candidate. But when you're looking at everyone else who has officially announced, most of them have got strong records, and everyone is going to be talking about public safety, public safety, public safety.
Roderick Sawyer, member of City Council, 6th Ward since 2011, son of the former Mayor Eugene Sawyer, which, of course, very short term, but mayor nonetheless of Chicago. Duly noted on all ends. There's also some expectation that we may hear from former Governor Pat Quinn, that he's shown some interest. Are there any on your radar, being in the know, are there any on the edges? Are there any big names? First of all, two-pronged question. Is this a strong enough field? Or do you think we're going to see some bigger names enter?
So I love that question, because if you will recall, 2 weekends ago, there was an election for the chairman of the Illinois Democratic Party. And during that election, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, who was finishing the term of former chairman Michael Madigan because he stepped down, was not able to get a full term on her own because of the politics of that field. And the person leading the charge against her being the chairman of the Illinois Democratic Party was none other than Congressman Chuy Garcia, who is someone who has run and made a very strong run for mayor in the past. As a matter of fact, he got into a runoff with former Mayor Rahm Emanuel. So he was able to line up Latino in particular votes on that smaller commission so that he could put another Latino in office, Representative Lisa Hernandez. When we're talking about the Illinois Democratic Party, that's not just this small thing in a vacuum. We're talking about how you get power to run for other offices. And one of the things and people that he was supporting, and also who supported him in that, was J.B. Pritzker, who is the governor, who has become the de facto leader of the Illinois Democratic Party. So there are all types of discussion about Chuy Garcia, who is currently a congressman, could run for mayor again, made a strong showing the last time. He would not have to leave his seat as congressman. There's a possibility that you may see his name. I know J.B. Pritzker has already come out and said that he's not supporting Chuy Garcia, but he has not said who he is supporting. And also, we haven't heard from Chuy Garcia.
That's interesting. Indicators have not pointed to him running again, but that would be an interesting name. He did take Rahm Emanuel to a runoff. Of course, last go around, this entered a runoff because it was Lightfoot, Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle, and then the biggest name of them all, last name of them all, Daley, Bill Daley, finishing third. That pushed it into a runoff. No one got a majority of the vote. So that's an interesting name you bring up. Again, though, so are you saying you don't think this is a strong enough field yet, or not the field we're going to see?
I don't think it's a strong enough field.
Go say once again, Kimberly. Say that this is not a strong enough field yet.
No, I don't think this is a strong enough field, and one of the reasons is you've got everyone running, appealing to their own smaller base or their own smaller community. And when you think about the mayor who has run, she won by a landslide, and she was able to garner the support of many people in many different communities. I'm not going to say all, I'm not going to say everybody wanted Mayor Lori Lightfoot, but there was enough support coming from different communities that you can see that business community, liberal community, LGBTQ community, putting that together. Whereas right now, when I'm looking at the people who are running, I just don't see that right now. Is the vote against the current mayor strong enough that you can create a movement in that way to try and take the mayor out of the office? Maybe, perhaps. But it's going to be interesting, because when you say, is it a strong enough field, I don't know who else you could add to it who would be that candidate to give that type of knockout punch to the current mayor. So it's going to be so interesting to watch to see how this all pans out. They should be circulating petitions beginning August 30th, so later this month, and those petitions will have to be turned in November after the general election, which, you know, we're always in a perpetual election season. So it will be quite fun to watch and interesting to see how it shakes out.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think that we are at this part in the game, and we are at this inning of it, and yet no one appears to either be a front runner, and if there's not a front runner, there doesn't appear to be someone on the outside that could hand that knockout punch, to use some boxing parlance. That's a good point, duly noted, Counselor. So do you think right now the most resonatable message, obviously Alderman Ray Lopez, naysayer, constantly nipping at the mayor, particularly about public safety. Public safety likely will be topic A, no question about it, but probably someone with a more refined message. And would you give a little bit of a nudge then, were you saying, to Paul Vallis?
Well, if we're talking about just contrasting style, he has not had a strong run in the past. So that is the one thing that I will say. He was not a strong contender in the 2019 election, but he has been trying to shape himself as the person who will get the city safe again, which will resonate with certain communities. There are other communities that have lived, especially on the south and west side, they've lived in a city that has been unsafe for their neighborhoods for a long time, and they've endured it. So there are other messages that have to get out there. Are they willing to talk about how to improve education? In that case, Paul Vallis, he may have a few issues. He's been the leader, chairman of schools. He's been someone who went to other cities and completely changed their public school system to 100% charter. These are some issues that will hang around his neck. He was a budget director, so that is something that's probably strong to some people, and to others, they may question the way in which he balanced a budget. But I think many of the residents want to hear about schools, they want to hear about education. They want to hear about property taxes and what will happen to them. The number one thing that people want to hear on the South and West sides is about not just public safety, but when are you going to make these communities look like the other communities and function like other functioning communities in which they're walkable, people can shop in their own community, they don't have to fear for their lives, and there are extremely strong economic development made up of people coming from their own community. In African American communities, people want to see African Americans own stores and businesses in their communities. And this has been decades in coming. I feel bad for anyone who is the next mayor because it's not something that they created as a problem, but it's time for real solutions in the city. What are you going to do to ensure that people who have lived here for generations finally get the things that they deserve? And when you get that person who's willing to talk about those things and not just the things they feel are going to make them win, I think that may be when you get the winning candidate.
And no question, Mayor Lori Lightfoot has had a hell of a ship to helm over the past few years. COVID, and you can list the resumes of issues that have gone on now, borderline economic crisis. We're a long ways from late February of 2023, but what are the odds Mayor Lightfoot gets a second term?
Well, considering the number of candidates that are entering this race, the odds are pretty good because she has got a base. I'm sure she probably has lost some people because anyone who's in office is never going to carry everyone that they brought along the first time. There will be some naysayers and people who are upset with the job that they're doing. But she's the incumbent. And that automatically means that she's going to at least be given the benefit of the doubt, in my opinion, to get to a runoff. And who will be in that runoff, I can't say, because I will tell you, Brad, in 2018, when I was covering 2019, when I was covering that mayoral election, nothing would have prepared me for Mayor Lori Lightfoot, or then candidate Lori Lightfoot, who had no political background, to be in a runoff with another African American woman, now president, and then Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle. Nothing prepared me for that night. So we may get a shocker, but I think that she at least makes it to a runoff, if doesn't win it outright, considering the way you're looking at all of these different candidates who are jumping in, some with more success in the past, some with less success, some with names that are they don't carry a lot of political weight as far as getting votes. It's gonna be a rough ride just to see what happens next year.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about 2019. Nobody would have foreseen that. Everyone saw if there was a runoff, it was going to be Daley Preckwinkle. Preckwinkle
Yes.
likely had the edge there, and none of that happened. Lawyer, friend of the stream, talk show host, Kimberley Egonmwan. We're going to stay on top of this race for the next several months, and we will have you on again soon. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us as we talk about the mayor's race. Popular name, City Council, 4th Ward Alderwoman Sophia King, endorsed by a one-time President Obama in 2016 to get that seat. It's not saying anything now, but it's a good name to have in your pocket. Now making a run for the mayor's office. We're a long way from late February 2023, but we'll stay on top of it here with conversations like that on the stream. We appreciate you joining us. I'm Brad Edwards. Now back to the stream.